Welcome to Datafied. If this is a different view that you're not used to seeing on my channel, that's because I don't do too many tutorials, but I feel like this one is needed. Today, we are installing this Electric Railroad, or ERR, Cruise Commander M Odyssey kit. And what that means is essentially we're going to give Lionel's nice, smooth, steady speed control to this engine. Now, this engine already has TMCC control in it. This is a K-Line GS64. This is very similar to the K-Line Daylights that are much easier to find. The K-Line Allegheny, really any K-Line engine that doesn't have cruise or has a burnt out cruise board, or any older Lionel TMCC engine that was too old to have Odyssey. This is going to upgrade those engines and allow them to have nice, easy, finite speed control so they don't slow down and speed up and such with different turns and different loads on them. This will give you much more consistent speed control. That's what Odyssey is. Now, I'm using this GS64 as an example, but it's only because I've done it on everything else. I would have used a K-Line Daylight, which is much more common to find, but that's again the same type of engine here. Plus, I'm going to try and focus less on what makes this install specific to the GS64, and more so just show you some things to look for and give you a guide on how to do this on any engine that you have. Now, the first thing you need to do is figure out where the board is that we're going to replace, because within this kit, here, let's open this fella up. Within this kit, you have the main event, which is this big old board thing. Here, let me open this guy up. It was a bag inside of a bag. There we go. Sealed inside here is the board that we're going to use to replace one of the boards in this thing. Now, I say that because sometimes this type of board is stored in the locomotive. In this case, I already know that it's stored inside the tender. But let's open it up so that way you can see it a little bit better. Alright, so we got him out. Yeah, and one of these is bent over a little bit, but that's fine. I'm going to bend it back up very gently just so that way you guys can see these four guys here. Because this is kind of the easiest way to tell what you're looking for. You see these stacks that are sticking up with the holes in the sides of them? These are MOSFETs. These kind of help disperse heat and such, but also these guys are going to, again, be the visual cue to finding the board that we replace with this, because this is essentially a drop-in replacement, and you'll see how it does that in a second. Now, again, I already know that the board is in here, so we can get rid of the locomotive. And the other thing that I like, if you don't know where it is, always start with the tender, because the tender is usually pretty easy to come apart because it's just 4 screws in the bottom. You're going to want to look for, now there's a lot of screws on the bottom of locomotives. You're going to want to look for the ones in the corners of the frame, not things that are attached to like the ladders here probably. There's one here, one there. I've already taken this one apart. One here and one there. The rest of the screws you can leave. You will make a gigantic mess if you remove all of the screws from the bottom of this thing, because when you open it up, all the stuff that was connected to those inside the frame of this are just going to be flopping around. Ah, there we are. Oh, it's so nice and neat, all those boards lined up in a row. And this is the part of the show where we get to do matching. So here's our board that we're going to put in. Which board looks like this? One of these things is not like the other. Oh, there it is. You can already see it. There's these 2 metal boards that are sticking up that these are screwed through, and they're screwed through the same holes that we have in here. So this guy is going to replace this. So all we need to do is remove these nuts and screws from the tops of this and unplug the main power supply here, which you can already see is going to plug right back into that guy. And we're going to remove this board and drop in this guy. Let's go for it. It's during this part of the show where I'd like to point out how handy this thing is. I could have used needle nose pliers to hold these bolts in place, but all I've been doing is I'll use my Phillips head screwdriver to turn the screw on one side, and then I'll use the flathead end here just to kind of hold the bolt in place up against something else. Then I can screw it out, and because this thing is magnetized, there's a little magnet on the end of this, Not only does it mean that this thing is pretty much magnetized, but all those little bolts and stuff over here, I can just grab real easy with the end of this guy. This has been one of my favorite tools to use for doing electronics. Now, you can save all of these screws and such, but it is nice that the kit at least includes replacements for you if you'd like to use those. I like to use OEM hardware whenever I can, so I end up reusing the screws and bolts that are in here already, but again, not the biggest deal if you use the stuff that's in the kit. I do think it's nice that the kit includes those in case you lose something, or in case you just want to use that different hardware. Maybe you stripped a screw or something. It's nice to have backups. Yeah, so I can't quite get that guy out, but it's not a big deal. You can see now the board is loose. Got a little bit of lithium grease or something here on the side. That's fun. I get to clean that up. Usually you don't run into something like that. I guess they put it on both sides to make it easier to slide in, perhaps, or maybe to insulate. I don't really know. Sid probably knows. All right, so you're just going to press down on this little guy here and pull out. There we go. So now the main power is disconnected from this board, and there's one more little guy down here that you can just pull out. There we go. There's the old cruise board. We're going to be getting rid of him. And there's the shiny new one. You can see that this 4-pin connector is real similar to this guy, and that this 4-pin connector is identical to this guy. But yeah, we're ready to install the new board already because the old one is out. Before we put the new board in, it's good to check out and see what else is in here because some of these are going to get used. Not all of them. Now, if you don't have, they include some parts in here that you won't end up using for this one specifically. But if you don't have this type of connector here, that big 4-pin main power one, they have supplied one in here for you. I don't know how to wire that one up because I haven't done a upgrade that didn't already have this type of connector in there. There are instructions online, obviously. So if yours does need this wired in, they show you where you need to connect these wires to get this plug to work with the cruise board. So this is essentially an adapter in case the locomotive you're using doesn't have it. But we won't need that one today. We are just going to need this guy. This really long connector one with only 2 guys being used in it does seem like a bit of a waste. I'm sure there's a reason for using that large of a connector for only 2. I've made a mess of this. For only 2 leads coming out of it. They did a good job of packaging this, and I'm doing a terrible job of taking it apart. There we go. Maybe. There. This guy is going to fit into the long wide connector here on the side, and it only goes in one way mercifully, so there's not really a way to screw it up. Crazy. There. Whew. I'm always afraid I'm going to get that wrong. Oh look, this plastic's already broken on this one. Oh well. It's in there good and tight, it's not going anywhere. Excellent. I like to install stuff on the board before I put it back in, just because it's a little bit easier to get to some of that stuff. I'm going to straighten these MOSFETs out a little bit more on the board since they got smushed in shipping, but that's fine. And the other board, the other one in here that you're going to need, not going to need this one with the black wires for this one. Going to need this guy, and he looks an awful lot like this connector that's down here, that's still attached to the board, and we're going to replace it. We're not only going to plug it in over here, but we're also going to replace this one, so I'll need to snip that here. I'm going to connect these on there, and then we're going to follow these guys. Thankfully there's a pink wire that makes it pretty easy to find, over to here and remove that one from the board as well. So we've got the old one out. We can plug the new one in. We want to make sure it's nice and snug and tight in there. And look down the side to make sure, yep, it's flush and it's all of your pins are connecting evenly. And now this guy, whoo, just barely got enough room to reach over there. We're going to plug in the main power here. And we're going to reinstall those 4 bolts to put it back in this cradle over here. We're going to do something with these wires a little bit later. I just learned something. This didn't happen to me last time, but because these MOSFET points are thicker, these thinner bolts that came with this don't really reach through far enough to get the threads on. So mercifully, maybe this is why they included it. I haven't run into this before. These screws are longer, so these are going to fit all the way through and then some to give you something for these to bite onto. Much better. As I wrap up reinstalling these 4 screws holding the MOSFETs in, yeah, it's good to mention, hey, Dadified, how did you not know that these screws were going to be useful like this? Well, even though I've done a bunch of K-Line daylights before, those even had, one of them actually had the board that we're replacing in the locomotive. So even though they may look the same on the outside, doesn't necessarily mean that they're not all the same on the inside. That was brilliant, it just lost him. And that's, folks, why you get a magnet. So the final piece of this whole puzzle is this blue wire, and this is what will keep you from getting this whole thing working or not. This supplies serial information from the new Cruise M board to your R2LC. Now, if you don't know which one that is, just look for the board that's labeled R2LC. There's a little label on this one, for instance. You don't see that label on this one, and this one is rail sounds because it's got 2 chips in it. But you want to connect this to the pin 24 spot on the R2LC. Now you can either find where the serial data wire is in this mess, or you can take off the little bit here and use that bit of wire to solder it gently to the board there, right where pin 24 is. In my case, pin 24 is the one that's closest to the top here that goes into this board. And it's just right next to it. I have a diagram on screen that'll show you where to find pin 24, because that's the serial data one, and that's what this guy needs to communicate with. If you're installing this on a K-Line model, you're pretty much done. This green wire doesn't get used that's attached to the new Cruise M board. So I just wrap it up, cover up the lead so that way it doesn't come into contact with anything weird, and just secure it somewhere inside the board. Then just use the included zip ties to clean things up wiring wise if you like, and get the shell back on, and let's get it on the track to test it. Alright, so we have the locomotive back on the track. I have the switch in program mode. We're going to program this as 8.6 because this is number 486, and we'll get her going. Great. It dawned on me that some of you might not know how to program an engine, so you just put the engine in program mode, you switch it underneath the tender in the case of this guy. There's a switch somewhere on the locomotive to go from run to program. Have it in program, turn on the track power, and then click engine 8.6 in this case because our engine is 8.6. And then underneath this thing, or wherever your set function is, press set, and you'll hear the engine do a little blast the whistle just like mine did. And then set it back to run and you're good to go. Look at that super slow crawl. Yeah, she's working. I only wish it had, more chuffs per revolution. But that's another mod for another day. Buttery smooth. This is gonna make Odyssey 2 blush. not slowing down for corners. Over here, especially it would. Once I transitioned from 084 to 048 on my layout, it would slow down there every single time. But nice, consistent speed. I can increase speed smoothly. I can slow down smoothly. It's the best upgrade for these old K-Line engines. So that's it for the ERR Cruise M install on this K-Line engine. If you've got questions, leave them in the comments below, and if I can't figure it out, maybe someone else in the comments can help us out as well. We'll all get to enjoy these trains together. If you like this, please leave a like. Subscribe if you're new especially. Gonna have more tutorials, more videos, more running sessions, all sorts of fun stuff. So stay tuned, and we'll see you guys on the next one.